Are we on, are we live?
Right now we are, yeah.
Can the schools open, please?
Mayor, did you find the instructions or do you want me to read it? Okay,
Hey,
thank you.
Christie.
Welcome to the regular Board of Trustee meeting for Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. Is there a motion to open the meeting? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? Meeting is now comes to order. The instructions regarding remote participation in public meetings has been posted on our website and has been distributed with our agenda. I will very quickly read that. Just so everyone is aware that during this pandemic crisis, our statutory board meetings will be conducted remotely. You will be able to participate via Zoom, by internet, or by telephone, or you can watch the meeting live stream on YouTube. The videos can also be viewed after each meeting on YouTube and will be posted to our website. If you would like to mail a comment to our village clerk, please do so by 3 p.m. the day of the meeting. Be sure to include the meeting and agenda item you would like to address. Send comments to ldraper@dobbsferry.com. For public hearings, we will accept email comments in advance of the hearings. Again, please email ldraper@dobbsferry.com by 3 p.m. the day of the meeting. You should also be aware that you can watch these meetings not only on YouTube or via Zoom or by your video or by your telephone. Can we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
Republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God.
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to have a moment of silence for those that we have lost and family members who are suffering through this terrible pandemic crisis. A moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, can I just add one thing?
Yes.
Anybody that's participating in Zoom, if you want to raise your hand, there's a raise your hand button. So if you click on that, it gets our attention and we can allow you to speak. And if you're participating by phone, you have to hit *9 to participate and we'll call on you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jen, and that will be for when the public hearing starts. Before we get into the public hearings, I'd just like to make a comment. People are asking a lot of questions. I get a lot of email. The staff gets a lot of email regarding questions concerning the details of the residents who have tested positive for COVID-19. And I just want to state that we are not permitted to get into the details, the specifics of locations or names of people who have tested positive. The reason that we do get that information is to protect our first responders. The first responders must know who are COVID-19 positive residents, so to protect themselves and wear the proper protective gear. The information that is provided by the county is obtained by the state. And I just want everyone to know that that information comes to us. It is not the most up-to-date information, but it is gone through the state Department of Health to the county Department of Health, then to us. So, and the county counts only the active cases as those people who have been diagnosed within the last 2 weeks. So as far as the county is concerned, if you were diagnosed more than 2 weeks ago, you no longer have an active case. So I would just want to advise the residents that they should not email me or any of the other trustees or the staff if they're asking for details and specifics regarding the location of positive cases or any other information. I've signed, as well as the chief of police have signed, non-disclosure agreements. So I'm responsible and the village is responsible for any leaks of that information. And we do have a absolute obligation to protect the privacy of our residents. And we cannot provide any further information other than the number of positive cases. Okay. Having said that, we're going to go into the public hearings, and on the agenda is, for the first public hearing, is the 100 Main Street project. And I just want to state at the outset that we have received in the last day or two correspondence from residents who've called into question the legal sufficiency of the plans and of the documentation. And upon review of that information, we've decided to adjourn that hearing. We're going to adjourn the public hearing for 100 Main Street to May 26th at 6:30. In the interim, the village attorney, the village staff will review the documentation to determine if the applicant's submission is legally compliant. Those of you who have attended today's meeting and intend to make a statement or comment regarding 100 Main Street, I ask that you do not do so. You're certainly free to do so, a courtesy of the floor. But since we're adjourning it to May 26th, there's really no need to present your comments now. We have received comments from people, and that will be made part of the record, but we're simply going to adjourn 100 Main Street to May 26th to, so we'll give an opportunity for us to review the information and the sufficiency of the documentation. Moving on to public hearing number 2, we are going to adjourn that hearing. That public hearing is regarding 115 Broadway, St. Cabrini, the parking lot. That we've already noticed that we're going to adjourn to the May 26th Board of Trustee meeting also. We're waiting for the parking consultant's report to come in. And as far as I know, we have not received that report. So we're going to adjourn that public hearing until May 26th, 2020 at 6:30. That brings us to public hearing number 3, which is a continuation of the public hearing to consider an introductory local law which proposed to amend the criteria, conditions, and process for sidewalk cafe permits. Do I have a motion to reopen that public hearing? Trustee Casal, second trustee Sullivan, all in favor? That passes unanimously, so that public hearing is now open. And I know that with regard to the sidewalk cafe permit, we had a prior public hearing on March 24th, 2020, which was adjourned to today. We do have the resolution adopting that sidewalk cafe, and I just want to turn to Ed Manley. Maybe Ed can shed some light on this.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. There's been for many years a requirement in the code that a permit is required for a sidewalk cafe. But that's all it really said, and it had a fee. And the standards were just tucked away in a drawer somewhere. So what we've done here is just, incorporated the standards into the code, the law for the permit, and we've made it a little easier for people to renew year after year. The first year, they just get the sketch in. And if they don't change that, they could just renew it very easily the second and third and continuing years. There's not much else to be said about that. It's everybody who's had one is pretty familiar with, but we've had to go out and instruct them and show them what's required. Now it's in the law, and anybody drawing up a sketch for this can readily access it in our code and design according to it.
Okay, I note that the cafe, the outside cafe would, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like it will allow outdoor eating from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And
That's correct.
it also permits people from the outdoor cafe from April 1st of the year through December 31st. Is that correct?
Yeah, most people don't keep it open till December, but that's when it would end.
Okay. And I also thought that it's important to note that the food and beverage must come from the establishment, so they can't be bringing it from outside. And if the restaurant or the establishment must be open, serving inside as well, and that the alcohol must be served by a waiter and brought to the table. And there's no extra outdoor lighting. The lighting must come from the tabletop itself. So I think those are the key factors for me anyway. Does anybody else have any other discussion about this?
And
Okay.
these are the same rules that we had, that they were following all the way up until now, correct, Ed?
Pretty much, we've just made it very clear about, how much room you need for pedestrians to pass by. And yes.
And we're thinking about the hours, that it's till 11 p.m. and that's not new. That's what they have been able to
Right.
do. So that's not any later than previously. So it shouldn't cause any more disruption than previously.
You are correct.
Is there anything you want to any light you want to shed on this, Laura Lee?
No, I took Ed's outline and suggestions, and they were based on the criteria you had in the drawer, so to speak, and now we have them out in the daylight, and they're pretty well defined, where it's located, how far from any obstruction, etc.
Any other discussion or comments? Are there any attendees who want to comment? Can you tell, Jennifer?
Yes,
Anybody-
Patty has his hand up.
Okay. Patty, you may speak.
Thank you, sir. First, I want to thank you for doing this because I think getting this clarified is really helpful. I know sometimes when we've helped people who are filling the forms out, they get kind of confused. And this, I think, it's not making anything different. It's just making it really easy for them to understand and making it easier for them to renew each year. I think is a great idea. It takes less of the office time. One question I have is when I don't know the next time we'll be having a festa. Cuomo's comments today make it sound like the fall is we're not gonna be in the clear by the fall. But the next time that one is or something other kind of event, one of the challenges often is the legality of people who have restaurants that serve alcohol to serve outside. And one of the things I've always hoped is that if we have the sidewalk permit, that store, that bar, restaurant, whatever it is, that would be something that would give them permission then to serve alcohol at the festa instead of them having to do an extra loop in it.
Well, this law, the sidewalk cafe law, allows them to serve 2 tables in the permitted area.
Yeah,
If you're talking about selling alcohol to somebody who can take it and walk down the street, no.
yeah, we actually don't let people do that. What we do is if it's being served by a restaurant, they have to consume it at a table at the restaurant. I guess the challenge would be is that the diagram would be different for the festa than it is for, for the sidewalk cafe. But if there's some way that could be, say, value added for somebody getting the cafe license, I think that would be a great thing. We should just look into it.
Patty, I think it's pretty strictly regulated by the state. So anything having to do with this alcohol and the consumption of alcohol would certainly need oversight by the state. We cannot.
Yeah, but the SLA is who we've dealt with each time. And the first question they ask us is if the applicant has a cafe license. And if they do, they seem to treat that as being something that they're allowed to serve alcohol outside on their sidewalk. Just to look into it, could be good. Thank you.
Maybe the committee for the event could meet with the staff and we would go over an amendment for just that particular day.
Sounds great.
Okay, but just to be clear, this law does not in any way affect change the requirements or the permit for the restaurants or other establishments during February Festa.
One quick question. Does the type of alcohol license that a particular business has will affect this type of permit? Because I know that I have a permit that only allows me to serve alcohol inside, and I cannot serve alcohol on my patio.
So you have to have the ability to do that with your license to the state. You have to include the service of table outside your restaurant. That needs to be on your permit, your alcohol permit. It doesn't have to be, it's not a local concern.
Okay. Thanks, Laura Lee.
Any other discussion? Jennifer, anybody else raising their hand?
No, no one has their hands up.
Okay. So having heard no further discussion, I'd like to take a motion to close this public hearing. Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. So as I've indicated, we've just concluded our second public hearing regarding this matter. And having fully discussed and reviewed the merits of this law, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution of local law 3-2020 regarding sidewalk cafe permits. Is there a motion? Trustee Cassell, second. Trustee Patino. Is there any discussion regarding this law? Having heard none, all in favor? That law passes unanimously. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is a public hearing for the purposes of establishing the sewer rate rent regarding water consumption. So is there a motion to open this public hearing? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? Okay, this public hearing is now open. I'd like to turn initially to Jeff, who can discuss it.
Charlene, I think Charlene wants to.
Yeah, I just want to start it off. Jeff really knows the numbers. If you all remember, on March 20th, we had a public hearing and ultimately we passed the sewer rent law, allowing us to set a rate or develops a law that would allow us to charge for sewer rent. The reason that we did that is our sewers are in somewhat bad state. I mean, they're old. That is the issue in all of the river towns, and I would venture to say in all of New York State, unless they're very new communities. We have 25 miles of sanitary collection sewer within our borders, and our DPW takes care of them. They maintain, they repair, not the laterals, but the sewer main, sanitary collection sewer mains. As you also know, real property taxes are paid by owners of real property. However, they are not paid by the not-for-profits. Yet the not-for-profits use the sanitary sewers too. So under the state law, villages are allowed to charge a sewer rent. That law has been passed already. The only thing we are doing now is setting the rate for all the users of the sanitary sewer. This will, again, provide taxpayer savings of 40% because 40% of Dobbs Ferry property is tax exempt. So we'll spread it over every property. It provides true cost transparency in that everybody will know exactly what we charge, exactly what we, the cost of repairing and maintaining the sewers. The fees are based on use. So there's some control for the individual property owner to lessen the use of the sanitary sewers, thus lowering the cost. I think the main necessity of it is to ensure that we upkeep our sanitary sewers. DPW has been doing a very good job of it, and we will be able to really track it and see what the cost is. So we have determined that the cost of it is 1.359 of water consumption, which is to CCF use, every CCF use. And a CCF is 748 gallons. So you're paying $1.357 for every 748 gallons that you use. That means nothing to most people. It doesn't mean much to me. But if you were to take a 2,000 square foot house, okay, on a usual basis, what that would be, and you know, with a 2,000 square foot house, that's you know, you probably have 3-4 people living there at least. a family of 5, this is a family of 5, will pay $144 a year, approximately $12 per month for their water charges. The money that we have sort of determined, and it's an estimate at this point because we didn't know it before, we have an idea of what we used. We took $180,000 out of our budget. So that your real property taxes will not, you will be not charged for that. We took $180,000 and we divided it with a formula that Jeff will talk about because I have no idea what the formula is, but he did his magic, and his magic determined that 1.335 will cover that 180,000 that it will cost us, we estimate this year, for repairs of sewers, and give us a little more to investigate some of the sewer problems that we've been having. That amount is taken out of the budget and will not be paid by the property owners. It will be paid by all users of the sanitary sewer system instead. And it will be spread out over a bigger amount of people. Jeff?
So that was, yeah, you gave a lot of good information. The total amount that we budgeted for the sewer fund itself is $629,531. And the question could come up, well, I thought you said 180,000. Well, what we need to be able to do is, like Charlene said, take a look at engineering, see, what is going on with that system. Does it need to be updated immediately? Can it wait a short while? But we took that $629,000 figure and we were provided with historical consumption data. And we used that historical consumption to divide into the 629,000 to get our $1.36 per CCF that we're proposing to charge.
And Jeff, it's a separate fund.
Correct. It's a standalone fund. It's out of the operating fund. It's its own self-sustaining fund. No taxpayer money goes into that fund.
Larry, is there anything else you want to add?
Sure. I mean, just very quickly, it's unfortunate that we are going to have to spend more money on our sewer system going forward, but that's the reality we face. And I commend Charlene and Jeff and Lori Lee, all of whom worked very hard to put this sewer district into effect, because as Charlene said, it allows us to have the nonprofits share based on usage in these costs across the board. So it's a benefit to homeowners relative to what it would have cost had we not been able to include the nonprofits. Charlene's 40% estimate is just an estimate. We don't know exactly what the consumption is going to be, and the density of some of that land is higher, and per capita, and some of it's lower. Some of these numbers are not certain, but we do know for sure that this means that the number that the typical homeowner is going to pay is lower than it would have been otherwise. And one last thing on this that I think is important to realize is, from a sustainability standpoint, it's good news to charge people for resources like water based on usage, because it sets up a situation where people are incentivized not to use more of the resource than they need.
That's a good point. Just so we could talk about a little bit about the mechanics, so people are, go ahead, Laura Lee.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in a little bit. Up until a couple of years ago, villages were not permitted to collect this type of fee for use of their sanitary sewers. The villages don't have the authority to create a sewer district, much like the counties and the towns do. So the legislature in Albany amended the general municipal law to permit this process, specifically to spread more equitably the cost of the operation and maintenance of these aging infrastructures more equitably amongst all the users of the infrastructure, as opposed to just the tax-paying users. So this is a more equitable way to approach it. It's a direct result of Albany expanding the rights of the village, and Charlene worked very hard in getting access to the data for actual consumption. This is based on the actual consumption numbers provided by Suez. We have a non-disclosure with them, their proprietary information, but we've been able, with permission of the Public Service Commission, to obtain actual figures on the consumption by the users within the village. So we're not pulling pie in the sky. This is facts are friendly, which I like to say, and our governor likes to say, and this is based on a fact. There's a certain amount of assumptions you make in your first year because you wouldn't have actual data, but the part that is actual is the consumption numbers, and that's been obtained directly.
Yes, Donna?
Yeah, I think it should also be mentioned that because of this, we were also able to keep the budget down this year. Since it came out of the village budget, we were able to have a budget that didn't increase taxes. So people really aren't paying more with this rental fee, because it would have been thrown into their taxes, and then those taxes would have only been paid by tax-paying property owners.
Donna, that's a really good point, because what's included in the fee, in the rent, is DPW salaries and any administrative salaries that are, that do some work on it. So a proportion of the DPW salary and a proportion of the administrative staff salary come out of that fund.
I'm sorry to chime in with one clarification, unless I misunderstood. Donna, you're right in the sense that residents will pay less than they would have, but because we're facing higher costs, the actual cost in aggregate will go up. But you're right, the taxes are going to go down to offset what would have been paid for water in the taxes in a regular year.
Right. What this did allow us to do was basically kept the tax rate per thousand flat.
Can you explain the difference between the 180 number and the 6 something number you were talking about, Jeff?
All right, so the 180 roughly figure is going to include what DPW has projected for several years for repairs and maintenance of the sewer, basically as needed.
And per year?
Per year, well, yeah, per year. Mm-hmm. Plus, on top of the normal budget that DPW projects, like Charlene just mentioned, we are able to allocate salary and benefits for a number of staff, including admin staff and some DPW, a little bit from the building department to go towards to be paid by the fees out of the sewer fund. And then, the additional is for, an estimate, rough estimate of potential engineering costs associated with, seeing what state, the sewer system is in, camera work, etc.
And some capital projects.
And some capital.
For overtime, not just within a year.
Over time.
And you calculated the 1 point, whatever that was.
3.5, yeah.
based on the usage that we would have in a year or over time?
We were given historical data the past year, and it's something that we will continue to assess as we move forward, whether the rate is appropriate, whether it's high, whether it's low. Until we have a year or two of operations, we're not going to, totally know that is the fee that we're going to be charging totally in the future.
But previously, the money that was partially for salaries and stuff was coming just straight out of the general fund, and
General fund tax
180
levies.
the 180 would have helped that. That would have only been for the sewers and maintenance. And so now the amount that you've calculated is larger because it also is taking that out of the general fund parts of the salaries that go to help maintaining the sewers. Does that make sense? Is that right?
Yep, that makes sense. And then, at some point, the village does need to, do an assessment of that sewer system, and that cost would have been passed on directly to the taxpayers. Using the sewer fund allows us to spread the cost more equitably, using the big users of the system are going to pay more, and then we will be able to get some help from the nonprofits to maintain the sewer. They use it as well.
So it would have been a big bad surprise if something major went wrong and it was a $500,000 fix that all the taxpayers would have had to eat. But now we
Absolutely.
will fund for that.
You hit it on the head, Christy. That's exactly why, because what we're seeing now is a few more breaks than we did before, and it's not going to get any better. It'll probably get worse. So you're absolutely right. And so we were looking prospectively as to what will happen in the future.
Right, so that it's not just the taxpayers that are paying it. It's all users of the system.
Charlene, tell me how the users are billed for this. How does that part function?
We are in a third-party billing agreement with Manal that was passed by the board. And they will be sending out the bills based on the usage that Suez provides us.
So people should expect a forthcoming monthly bill regarding the sewer fund. Is that right?
Jeff, is it
Quarterly.
Quarterly.
Okay.
Quarterly bill.
So residents won't see any bill until after September.
And will there be automated payments or anything set up for that? Or is it just going to be you send a paper invoice and we have to mail a check, or what?
There will be direct. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Minol will be doing the bulk of the collection, and they have it, I believe, set up so that credit cards, bank accounts, basically all the modern ways of paying instead of writing a check.
They are already used by Portchester, and Ardsley is on the same track as we are, and they will be used by Ardsley also.
Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but to be clear, this isn't a plan to spend more than we would have to spend. It's just a better and fairer way to allocate that spending, including the nonprofits. So it's not an increase in what we would be spending otherwise.
That's correct. Going forward, to replace or repair, a length of sewer system is very expensive. So if we have breaks or a collapse of certain sections, it would be very expensive. And this way, like we keep trying to say, that it's passed on to all the users.
I'm sorry, I think I lost everybody, but I think I'm back. I appreciate the filibustering, so thank you.
Charlene, which other communities, neighbors of ours are actually doing this as well?
Ardsley is doing it. Hastings will do it next year. They were a little delayed in it. Tarrytown has their own water system. I think Irvington does it already. I'm not sure of that, but I know Tarrytown has their own water service. So they don't do it through Suez, and they do it in any case. So it's Ardsley who's doing it as we do it, and Hastings that will be doing it next year. Portchester does it, City of New Rochelle does it. I mean, there's many communities now who do it. I mean, 10 years ago, there were none, actually.
I'm
in
sure
Westchester.
I'm sure many more will follow once we also.
Absolutely. Yes, quite right.
I don't know if we discussed it, but we're going to hire an outside billing company who's going to bill the residents on a monthly basis. Is that the process?
We did already. We
Okay.
entered into an agreement.
It's just quarterly though, not monthly.
Okay.
And Mayor, whenever you start accepting public comment, we have someone's hand up.
Okay. Are there any other discussions or questions from the board itself? Okay, Jen.
Steve?
Oh, yeah, okay. It's Steve Tilley here.
Go ahead, Steve.
And just say your address as well.
Can't hear you, Steve.
I'm
Steve,
going to
we
move
cannot
on
hear
to the
you.
next one and then try and come back to him. The next one is AJ Dobbs.
Okay, AJ, you're on. AJ, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hi, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, thank you for your time. I just wanted to make sure I understood this correctly. Our billing is going to be based on our CCF usage, if I'm not mistaken. So I looked at my bill from this month and I had 117 CCF. So that by the multiplier gives me $159 charge from the village. Is that how it works? And yet my water bill was $88. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood how this is actually working. Because then I think about something like, I'm not picking on anyone, but like the Ardsley Country Club, they run their sprinklers all the time. I mean, how does the multiplier work for different areas, organizations, multi-families, condo complexes, and so forth? Just out of curiosity.
Jeff, can you address that?
There's going to be a process where an institution that, let's say, waters their lawns are actually able to come in and document or try to ask the board for a correcting factor for consumption. And then as far as your CCF, it's $1.36 per CCF consumed.
Right. Okay. I mean, I see that. Thank you. So as a resident, then if I run my sprinklers, can I come into the board and say I'm running them every day from July to September 1st for a reduction? Because the water's up, but it's not going in the sewer. It's going in the yard. Just like for example, and again, I'm not picking on a country club, but a country club.
Right, so there is a process where you can come into the board and you can ask for a review and an adjustment. I don't know if we would grant such an adjustment or review, but there is a process for you to do that. And you would have to lay out your reasoning for that. You have to make an application, and then the application would be in writing, and then it would be reviewed and a determination would be made. So I think every resident, including the non-for-profits and the for-profits, have that the ability to do that, and we will have to make a decision as to what would be a reasonable accommodation, so to speak, for the billing.
And then that goes the same for like a condo complex and a co-op or what have you, I guess.
It does go the same, but I think as Trustee Taylor pointed out, it is a way not only of spreading the cost, but making people pay for their usage, which in a sustainability world is what we want to do, to encourage people to be aware of their usage during the long run.
No, 100%. I agree with Larry, 100%. I'm there, but there are times we do have to, for example, do that. So I just, the other question I had was just a very quick one. If you compare, for example, a multifamily with 4 apartments as opposed to a single family, how are those adjustments made? Is that just based on the CCF consumption, which I assume it
Yes.
might be, which would make sense. I'm just
Yes.
asking for, oh, okay. Thank you, Charlene. Just for the
The-
sake of knowledge.
Mr. Dobbs, this is Lori Lee. The bill is sent to the property owner, whoever the property owner. So the individual condo owners would be property owners. They would get separate bills.
Oh, yeah, I'm
A
sorry.
multifamily goes to the property owner, and then the property owner then has the ability to pass through those charges to the individual unit owners as may be the case. But it's a single bill going to each property owner as the user. So in the cases as you've described, the rate is the same, the pace and based upon the consumption, and it's up to the property owner to reimburse himself, his and herself, from the tenants or the users on a case-by-case basis.
I see. Thank you. And I thank you all very much. I'm a real estate broker, Lori Lee. I think most everyone knows that. So I've had questions from my clients or potential clients. So I wanted to have the right answer so they don't all call you. I'm
Thanks,
sort of
AJ.
pulling everything out of everyone else to make it easy. So I thank
Thank
you all for your time.
Hey,
As
AJ,
Yeah,
also,
yes, Larry.
I would suggest that either you and I talk offline or that you reach out to Jeff, because I'm not sure all the units that were being applied in your math are right, based on what I would have calculated as a number of gallons that you would have consumed. So it might make sense for us to talk offline if you'd like.
Oh, sure. I have your contact. I'll reach out. But I thank you all very much. And can someone tell me how to mute myself? Because I know how to use Zoom, but not this one.
I'll do it, AJ. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Stay
You too.
I see we also got a question from someone asking, how does this cost of water apply to homes not on a sewer system? For example, people who are using septic tanks. So can you comment about that, Jeff or Charlene?
They'd apply to be removed from it if they use a septic. And do you know how many septics we have in?
Not very many.
I don't know exactly how many, but yeah, like Ed said, not very many.
Yeah,
Okay, so they would apply to be removed from the
Yes.
rental fee.
But if they don't use any, they would have to apply because they would still be using water, but they wouldn't be using sewers.
right.
Right.
Okay.
So we have some things that we would have to communicate to everybody.
Are there any other questions? Do you see anybody else raising their hand, Jen?
No one else's hand is up.
Okay, so having no further questions or discussion, I'd like to take a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee DeRosa, all in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. The public hearing is now closed, and I'd like to take a motion to adopt a resolution which establishes a sewer rent rate for fiscal year 2020 through 2021 and promulgating rules and procedures for the sewer rent program. The resolution is very detailed. It lays out the rates as well as the legislative history for the basis for the rent and details also the billing and collection. So is there a motion for this resolution? Trustee Patino, is there a second? Trustee Taylor, any discussion, any further discussion? Sorry.
Quick question. So in regards to what Mr. Dobbs brought up about his consumption, I just wanted to reiterate or get Jeff to explain real quickly one last time. This is based on, or the number you came up with was based on the usage that we had last year. So it shouldn't be a huge amount like he's saying to any individual property owner, besides the nonprofits who have not necessarily, or any large group that has not paid this at all, right?
That's correct. I think our estimate was for a 2,000 square foot home, somewhere around 200 a year, Charlene, I think. it was the estimate.
144, actually.
144?
Mhm.
Even better.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Oh, excuse me, Mayor.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Steve Tilley is back on. He was trying to talk
Oh.
before
sure.
and
Okay,
he just raised his hand. I'm sorry.
okay. Go ahead, Steve.
Steve,
He's muted.
I think we're both trying to unmute him. I'm trying and he's trying. Steve, can you unmute yourself?
What do you have to do? You press *6 or something?
*9.
*9, Steve. If he's called in.
Yeah, I can't unmute him. It won't let me unmute him.
Steve, if you are on a computer, you could
there he
send a
is.
question. Oh, hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Okay, great. There's one situation that I was wondering about, the capital. Again, I think it's a great thing. New capital projects. I'm thinking about the situation down at the bottom of Chestnut Street where the Pompey Church, like all the rest of us here, actually have a direct connection, not through the Dobbs Ferry sewer system, but directly into the county trunk line. But Pompey Church, that whole system is problematic. I happen to know, having built a house down here, that it's partly on the upper part of Chestnut Street or Ogden Park, and then partly it comes down, and that is really deserving of a capital project. But it's sort of one of these things that crosses boundaries, and right now there's no usage of the current Dobbs Ferry infrastructure, but it's, this may be a sidebar to talk about with, in another venue, but I just wanted to raise that issue. I don't know if there are other properties around that are on septic or, historically kind of independent.
I'm not aware of anything, Steve, and what will happen, I'm sure, is that we will discover these discrete properties as we do the project.
All right.
Any further discussion? Okay, so all in favor? That passes unopposed. Thank you. Okay, that does move us to courtesy of the floor. So if there is anyone who'd like to talk about anything, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I would ask that you don't speak about 100 Main, as we have adjourned that to the next Board of Trustee meeting. Is there anyone, Jen, who you see would like to talk for courtesy of the floor?
No one has their hand up as of right now.
Okay, going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay. Let's move to action item number 1, which is to consider a motion to approve audits numbers 1 and 2 for May 2020 as recommended by the village treasurer. Jeff?
These are just the normal expenditures for the audits 1 and 2 of May. If there's any questions about it, I can try to answer them.
Just very briefly, how do the expenses look for May regarding the expenses we incurred for the coronavirus?
I don't have all the invoices in for the corona, but I can tell you that when I looked at this audit, it was lower than a lot of the audits have been this this fiscal year.
Okay.
Because it would seem, because of cancellations, that we would probably see some expenses go away, offset by, expenses that are appearing and, potentially lower tax revenues. So that's something for us to talk about in the future.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take a longer look at this and see how it's really affecting us throughout the course of the year. I know we're spending money on all this emergency equipment and protective gear, so we have to take a look at it, how it's gonna affect us long term, especially since we don't know how we're gonna collect, what our tax collection is going to be like.
Right. Taxes, sales taxes, hotel taxes,
Mortgage
Not
tax.
Yeah,
mortgage tax, right?
okay. Is there a motion to approve the audits 1 and 2? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Sullivan, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that passes. Action item number 2, consider a resolution approving the tax warrant for the 2020 tax year. Jeff, can you talk about this a little bit?
You're letting me be the bearer of all the good news tonight, huh?
That's what you are, Jeff. You're the tax man.
All right, so this is just the annual levying of the property taxes for the 2020-21 fiscal year. The total levy is going to be $14,411,575. That calculates to a tax rate per thousand of basically $6.92, which is overall basically flat from the current fiscal year.
Okay, and what we're doing, it just gives, it seems to give the village clerk the authority to receive the tax money. Is that what we have to go through?
She is officially the tax collector. It does go through the treasurer's office.
All right, Liz, so you're officially the tax collector. Good luck with that. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution? Trustee Taylor, second. Deputy Mayor Cassell, is there any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that passes. And that brings us to action item number 3, to consider a motion to award the library cleaning contract to the lowest responsible bidder, T&A Cleaning, for the amount of $1,425 per month as recommended by Elizabeth Hobson, the library director, and to authorize Ms. Hobson to sign the contract. And we do have a memo from the library director wherein she received a number of bids and she's recommending using T&A Cleaning, which is the current vendor. So is there anything that you want to add to this, Charlene or Jeff?
No, this is something that she's done on a yearly basis.
Okay. Yes, Deputy Mayor Casal.
Does this, it might be a totally separate contract, a separate issue. Will this be including any sanitizing, antibacterial work that might be necessary when the library reopens, or will that be a separate contract?
My gut is that it will be a separate contract. This is for the usual cleaning that they have done, for years.
Charlene, does it make sense to confirm prior to signing this contract that the vendor is capable of doing that kind of additional sanitizing? Because that probably would save money versus having to hire a third party to come in and do it separately.
Larry, we do it under our contract and we have because when we sanitize, we have to do it too. And we just put it under that
Okay.
contract. So it's really actually cheaper to do it that way.
Okay, okay.
Any further discussion? Okay. I think I took a motion, right? Did I take a motion?
I don't remember.
Liz, did I take a motion? I did. All right, let's do it again if I already haven't. So is there a motion to adopt this resolution? Deputy Mayor Casal, yes. Second, Trustee Dirazi. Any discussion? All in favor? That passes. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the minutes. Are there any objections, comments, questions about the minutes for the hearing, for the Board of Trustee meeting of April 28th? Having heard none, is there a motion to adopt the minutes? Trustee Patino, second, Trustee Nell, all in favor? Okay, and the minutes are adopted. Are there any reports or announcements that anyone would like to make? Okay, having heard no reports or announcements, I'm going to adjourn the meeting so we can have a meeting with the advice of counsel. There being no further business, I'd like to take a motion to adjourn this meeting. Is there a motion? Trustee Nell, second, Trustee Patino, all in favor? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Jennifer, could you send us a new invite?
Yes, I will.